Hey guys, it's Leslie and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to go over my April reads from this year. I didn't read a ton. I think I read 6, maybe 7, which is a lot. I'm not saying that's a bad month. It's just a lot less than I have read in a couple of the previous months. Because I did not read as many books this month, this video should be pretty short, hopefully. And I'm sorry if my voice is kind of cracky or sounds deeper than normal. I know I have a deep voice for a woman. First book that I read in the month of April was In the Footsteps of the Band of Brothers, a return to easy company battlefields with Sergeant Forrest Guth. And this is by Larry Alexander. This is just another book that I've read in the whole plethora of books written on easy company from World War II. And I liked this book. I did not know that Forrest Guth, who is a veteran, and he was part of Easy Company, but he was not featured at all in the miniseries. And he was, I think, kind of at every battle. So that's interesting, how Hollywood decides which characters to cut out or which characters to give more make sort of like a composite of other people, soldiers, whatever. And I thought that was interesting, and this was an easy listen to. I listened to it on an audiobook and I liked it. So if you're into World War II and you like Band of Brothers, this might be a book to check out. The next book I got to was called Nothing Like It in the World, The Men Who Built the Transcontinental Railroad from 1863 to 1869. And this is by Stephen E. Ambrose. Now, he wrote the original book, Band of Brothers, which the miniseries is based on, but he's written a ton of other historical books as well. He's a pretty prolific historian, and I just needed something a little different in the non-fiction genre, and I was like, I don't know much about the Transcontinental Railroad except the whole like golden spike thing. And this book was okay. Like, if you are interested in this period of history and you just need to know the information, this is a great book. But this is not what I would call like narrative nonfiction, where it feels like you're really following a story. This is a pretty cut and dry. I did find the sections about the Chinese immigrants who built a ton of the railroad starting from California, and I just found that a very interesting parallel with a lot of the current political conversations about immigration. So that section was cool and quite relevant. But overall, this book is fairly dry, and that's coming from somebody who reads a lot of history nonfiction. So if you're, thinking, oh, I might like that subject, just you're forewarned. The next book I read was Voices of the Pacific by Adam Makos. I think that's how you say his name. And this is sort of just a collection of memories, so like snippets of people talking about their specific memories of the Pacific. Okay, saying those words together is a lot harder than I expected. And this book was good. I enjoyed the points of view of these other men. This story was very interesting because the way that the audiobook is made is that each veteran has sort of their own voice. So it's multiple people reading their stories and they just flow together, and I really liked it. I just found it really easy to listen to if you are interested in World War II battles. The next book I read was The Bedford Boys, One American Town's Ultimate Sacrifice on D-Day by Alex Kershaw. And this book was a tough read. This is about a town, Bedford, I think it's Virginia, but I could be wrong, after Pearl Harbor, and we were trying to really ramp up our military people in the military, in the service. Some states, National Guards, would just kind of filter their people, their men, into like the army or wherever. that's what happened here. There was a town, Bedford, and a bunch of the guys would all sign up for the National Guard, mainly because they got paid some money to be a part of it, and it was right after the Depression, so families didn't have any money. But what really is the saddest part of it is that all of these guys from this one particular town in their National Guard all went into the same unit in the army. So on D-Day, they all were together. And I think it was 21 of them died on D-Day or very shortly after D-Day. And it's a heartbreaking sort of story of a town and how it experienced the war through the eyes of their sons and in some cases, their fiancés or boyfriends or neighbors or brothers. And it was tough, but it was very interesting, just the mechanics of it and why some people go into service. And I found it a good read. And I definitely recommend it if you're interested in ultimately a very sad story. After that, I read Hell's Angels, a true story of the 303rd Bomb Group in World War II. This is a story about a bomb group, so Air Force section, division, I don't even know the terms, but and the bombing raids and basically what all that entails. This group, I think, is considered the group that did the most bombing raids, I think that's the sort of claim to fame. And I thought this was okay. It wasn't my favorite. Clearly I am a person who reads a lot of the Band of Brothers, so like the airborne sort of stories, and I have not read a ton about the Air Force in World War II, but I did find this to be interesting, and I learned some things about it. And some of the men's stories were really like crazy and really unbelievable about how they survived some of their missions, and a lot of like bailing out and being sort of, I guess, rescued by the civilians in wherever they were, like in France or in Holland or Germany, maybe wherever they were bombing at the time. So that part was cool. I just don't remember it being like super spectacular. And I do remember having to force myself to listen to it a little bit more than some of these other history books. Then I actually read a fiction book. I read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I read this with Summer at Summer Dawn for a buddy read. I liked this one. I read this in high school or college, I can't remember. And I remember really disliking it. I was one of the people who thought, why does everybody love Mr. Darcy? He's kind of a tool. I don't get it. He's super like arrogant, and I don't know. I just really was not a fan. But on the second time through reading it, I liked the story a lot better. I freaking love Mr. Bennet. So Elizabeth's dad is hilarious. I could not... Just everything he said was really funny. The way he talked to his wife, who was like such a meddler in her daughter's lives, just cracked me up. I mean, he was a little like, yeah, I have daughters, whatever. So, I mean, maybe he was a bit of a jerk as like the male stereotype, but I found him really witty and hilarious. So I'm pro Mr. Bennet. I'm okay with Darcy. I still don't think he's the best, but he's fine. And the last book I read was Anne's House of Dreams. This is the 5th in the series of Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. And I really liked this. I read quite a few negative reviews of this book online, and I felt like I had to like defend it a little bit. So if you see my review, it's basically saying, when you grow up, sometimes you are a little different, and if you become a wife or a mother, it doesn't make you less interesting, and it doesn't mean you gave up all of your dreams or like your adventuring spirit, because I don't know about you, but I am a mother and a wife. I have 2 kids, and my life is an adventure every single day. So I just felt that criticism was unfair to Anne, acting like she gave up her whole life just to become a wife and a mother. I think that's such a put down to women, because like it or not, we are biologically made to have children. that is one of our sort of evolutionary roles in the world. So I feel like we should embrace it a little bit more instead of saying it's like the equivalent of choosing this boring, monotonous life. So I just have to be a little like annoyed when I see reviews that say, oh, she's a mom, so she's so boring now. Like, get a life. So that was the book selection for April. Not great, honestly. They are like sort of depressing. I liked most of them, so I had a good reading month myself, but sharing them in this wrap up makes me sound like a boring wife and mother, I think. So I guess there's that. I'm watching Game of Thrones, like the newest season, and I'm a big fan. So I've felt a little itch for the fantasy, and I've read one already. I've started another one. So maybe my wrap up for May will be more interesting. Who knows? I don't know. And also, next week, my husband and I are going away for a few days to Mackinac Island, which maybe people know about that who are not from Michigan. It's quite famous. Movie Somewhere in Time, which is an old movie with, what's her name? Jane Seymour, maybe? And Christopher Reeve, I think. I've never seen it. Takes place there. I don't know. People know about it. I don't know. But we're going for a few days, but it's mostly just going to be relaxing because it is Michigan and northern part of Michigan is cold. So it's not going to be super warm, but I'm hoping to read a bunch. Maybe I'll vlog a little bit, see if that's interesting or if I get any good footage. Show you around the island a little bit because it is really quaint. There's no cars are allowed on the island. It's like, it literally is like stepping back in time, and you can get all the Mackinac Island fudge you want. So that's what's coming up in my life. I am really, really, really grateful for all the new subscribers. Thank you so much. I feel like that was what I needed to try to make better content. I have some ideas for the future of things that are a little more interesting, hopefully more, maybe a little bit out of the YouTube box, probably not by a ton. I mean, it's still going to be about books, let's get real, but maybe something that's not just, here's a slight, like how I feel about this one book. But that's my life. I hope you are having a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.
I'm a mom, and I'm really fun. I'm a cool mom. Grow. Grow.